Patrick Stewart, walking off Star Trek TNG's set in Season 1, reveals a heartwarming truth about Picard. Patrick Stewart once stormed off the Star Trek The Next Generation set, which highlights a particular truth about Captain Jean-Luc Picard. For 7 seasons of TNG, Captain Picard commanded the USS Enterprise D through many adventures, saving the galaxy several times over. Forever stoic, Picard kept himself at a distance from the rest of the Enterprise crew, rarely displaying strong emotions. In the early days of TNG, Patrick Stewart, too, took his job as an actor very seriously. Stewart opens up about this in Making It So, a memoir, acknowledging that he could be a severe bastard. Having previously worked on numerous performances for the Royal Shakespeare Company, Patrick Stewart was used to serious and often intense sets. When confronted with the sometimes silly antics of the Star Trek The Next Generation cast, Stewart initially reacted by calling a meeting to discourage the actors from goofing off, a meeting that he later stormed out of. However, the TNG cast became like a family to one another, and Patrick Stewart became one of the biggest jokers of them all. Stewart's journey from overly severe to warmer and less rigid mirrors Jean-Luc Picard's story in TNG and Star Trek Picard. Patrick Stewart's real-life growth echoes Jean-Luc Picard's Star Trek arc. Although Captain Picard remained serious for most of Star Trek The Next Generation's run, he had begun to warm up by the end of the series. He became open to the idea of embarking on a romance with Dr. Beverly Crusher, Gates McFadden, although she was not ready at the time. Episodes like TNG Season 5, Episode 5, Disaster, showed hints of Picard's softer side, as he helped 3 children remain calm while trapped in a turbolift. Still, Picard did not join in on the weekly poker games held by the crew until the iconic TNG series finale. By the time of Star Trek Picard Season 1, Jean-Luc had retired from Starfleet and spent his time tending to his family's vineyard. Picard remained somewhat serious, but flashbacks revealed the ways he had softened over the years. While spearheading the Romulan evacuation effort, Picard befriended a young Romulan named Elnor, Ian Nunny, Evan Evagora, bringing the boy gifts and teaching him how to fence. By Picard Season 3, the changes in Picard were more obvious. He smiled more and was much more open with his reunited Enterprise D crewmates, joining in their poker game without reservation. Patrick Stewart's walk-off story proves he was always the perfect Picard at this point. It's difficult to imagine anyone other than Patrick Stewart as Captain Jean-Luc Picard, but Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry was initially unhappy with the casting choice. However, Patrick Stewart proved to be the perfect Picard, and his story about storming out of a meeting highlights this. Throughout Star Trek The Next Generation's 7 seasons, Stewart grew with Picard, lightening up a bit as Jean-Luc was becoming more open. By the time of Star Trek Picard, both Patrick Stewart and Jean-Luc Picard have had time to reflect on their lives and what is important to them. Jean-Luc Picard is different in Star Trek Picard, but then so is Patrick Stewart. It's been decades for both of them, and who doesn't grow and change over that amount of time? Picard is still fundamentally the same man, willing to risk his career and even his life for those he cares about. And Stewart brings the same calm and caring energy to the character. Star Trek The Next Generation had a wonderful cast across the board, and Patrick Stewart's journey in particular mirrored that of his character in many ways. Patrick Stewart's portrayal of Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation TNG became one of the most iconic in science fiction television. However, few know that Stewart, a classically trained Shakespearean actor, almost left the series during its first season. His decision to walk off the set, however, reveals a heartwarming truth about his character, Picard, and the bond between the actor and his role that would ultimately shape the entire franchise. The early challenges of Star Trek TNG. When Star Trek The Next Generation first aired in 1987, it was stepping into massive shoes. The original Star Trek series had gained a cult following, and its cancellation in 1969 left a legacy that fans were eager to see continue. But TNG was a risky venture. It wasn't merely a continuation of the original series, but a complete reimagining with new characters, including the enigmatic Captain Jean-Luc Picard. For Patrick Stewart, the role was an unexpected career turn. At the time, he was a serious stage actor with little interest in television. In fact, when he was cast as the starship captain, Stewart was unsure if he would fit in. His background in classical theater was worlds away from the fast-paced, episodic nature of television sci-fi. On top of that, there were growing pains in the production of TNG's first season. The show struggled to find its footing, with some uneven scripts and behind-the-scenes tensions. Stewart found the experience particularly challenging. Accustomed to the disciplined environment of the Royal Shakespeare Company, where actors were expected to be fully immersed in their roles, Stewart often felt frustrated by the more relaxed and at times chaotic atmosphere on the set of Star Trek TNG. The first season was a testing ground not only for the show, but for Stewart himself, as he tried to find a balance between his serious approach to acting and the sometimes campy, fantastical world of Star Trek. Patrick Stewart walks off the set. The breaking point came during the filming of one of the early episodes in the first season. Reports suggest that Stewart was overwhelmed by the frequent jokes, casual behavior, and perceived lack of professionalism on set. Coming from the rigor of Shakespearean theater, where focus and intensity were paramount, Stewart found the mood on set disorienting. On more than one occasion, he expressed his discomfort with the light-hearted, sometimes unruly atmosphere. His co-stars, like Brent Spiner, Data, and Jonathan Frakes, Commander Riker, were more used to the pace of television and tried to reassure him. However, tensions boiled over, and Stewart walked off set, frustrated by what he felt was a lack of seriousness in the work being done. What followed was a moment of reflection, not just for Stewart, but for everyone involved in the show. According to later interviews with cast members, Stewart returned to set after cooling off, realizing that while his dedication was necessary, he also needed to embrace the lighter, more collaborative side of television production. He had been trying to bring the full weight of his classical training into the role, but he learned that leadership, much like his character Picard, required balance and adaptability. This experience helped shape his performance and deepen his connection to Picard. The heartwarming truth about Picard, Patrick Stewart's journey in the early days of Star Trek TNG mirrored the arc of Captain Jean-Luc Picard in a beautiful, almost poetic way. Much like Stewart, Picard began as a stoic, somewhat rigid figure. In the first season, Picard is portrayed as distant, formal, and reluctant to embrace camaraderie with his crew. His approach to command is one of discipline, duty, and adherence to protocol. However, over the course of the series, Picard evolves, becoming a more open, emotionally available leader. He learns to rely on his crew not just as officers, but as friends and confidants. This development mirrors Stewart's own growth as an actor on the show. The moment Stewart walked off the set, frustrated and at odds with his colleagues, was a turning point. It led him to realize that, like Picard, he needed to trust and embrace the people around him. The same leadership qualities that Stewart sought to bring to Picard, responsibility, integrity, and dedication, were enhanced by the understanding that humanity, warmth, and humor were equally important. Stewart's decision to stay on the series and fully commit to his role reflected Picard's decision to stay with the Enterprise crew through countless missions, challenges, and personal growth. Over time, Stewart's portrayal of Picard became more nuanced, showing a captain who was not only a brilliant tactician, but also a man of deep compassion and empathy. The connection between Stewart and Picard deepened, and the actor's vulnerability mirrored Picard's willingness to show his own. A legacy of leadership and humanity, Patrick Stewart's journey on Star Trek TNG and his moment of doubt in the first